I'm a games and theory kind of guy. I love puzzles, so it was fun dissecting Shakespeare's prose. Neil Patrick Harris.
There are probably at least a million YouTubers who've had some sort of discussion about modern dating and why things such as social media are causing a lot of social problems in terms of the human birth rate and loneliness and social instability or elections going the wrong way. And I get a lot of requests to talk about this stuff, whether it's how economic incentives interact with dating or what my thoughts are just about the whole modern dating situation. And in order to avoid having this channel turn into analyzing relationships with Nick, I restrict any videos related to this topic to once a year, and I do it around Valentine's Day and call it the Analyzing Finance with Nick Valentine's Day special. And for this year, I am going to be discussing class and romantic relationships. You hear a lot about why people pair up. Some people say their success in dating due to being looks matches or educational matches, or some guys got the riz and the other ones doesn't, or simple black pill genetic determinism, or some guys got money, but you don't really hear about class necessarily and how class interacts with human mating choices. And I think really the class component is the real red pill in romantic relationships. And we're going to discuss that. But before I go into specifically like which classes lead to more successful romantic relationships, or if you are in a certain class, what type of social class should be the romantic partner you pursue, we have to rewind several steps back and go into how people choose romantic partners generally, because I think the consensus on this is wrong and it leads to a lot of misfortune or misunderstanding on this topic. And in order to do that, we're going to have a math and economics lesson incorporated into this. And for this one, we're going to talk about the concept of game theory. Game theory, for those of you who do not know, is the concept and the study of using mathematical models of strategic interactions, mainly just assessing like what are the payouts of each move and what are the payouts of somebody other player in each move, and based on the incentives on both sides, you can try to predict how somebody will play the game. I took a lot of game theory related classes when I was studying economics in college. And for my younger viewers who are still at university, I do recommend taking a game theory class just because there's a lot of practical knowledge that can be drawn from learning about this. And we're going to go into a lesson in game theory to explain why people pick the relationships they do. But first of all, what are the goals really for relationships? And according to our game, there are really two. There is either people are looking for true love, which in this sense is like a partnership where people are willing to self-sacrifice for each other for the greater good and will not unconditionally, but short of like something really severe like abuse, will stick together and just be each other's partner in life and to live life together and grow and develop physically, spiritually, emotionally, etc. And then the other thing that people look for is control. And I don't really mean just like somebody has direct power over another, but it's more they want a stable relationship where they know they're going to get something and they know what they have to provide to do that in exchange. Right. An example would be, say like a woman is looking for a guy who is tall, and in exchange she'll have to put up maybe with that guy not being as attentive as somebody who is shorter because he has more attention from other women. Or example would be maybe a guy wants to be financially taken care of in a relationship, but the deal is he has to date a less attractive woman, but he knows what he's getting into. It's kind of more, I'm looking to get something out of this relationship and I know the maximum price I'm willing to pay. And that is what I call control. And people are usually looking for one or the other. And a lot of the heartache in society is that you have people who are looking for true love running into people looking for control, or vice versa. So let's look at the game. Let's just, for example, if you have a man who's looking for true love and a woman who's looking for true love, you're going to get a true love partnership. If you have a man who's looking for true love, but a woman who is looking for control, and these could also be the other gender, but I'm just doing what's more typical in these scenarios, you get what I call a blue pill breakup, where the control-seeking person is taking advantage of the kindness of the heart of the true love-seeking person, and the relationship falls apart. The other side is if you have a control-seeking man and a true love-seeking woman, that's called a red pill breakup, which in the sense is that the man is the one taking advantage of the more genuine romantic intentions of the woman to get what they want. And then if you have both people looking for a more control-seeking relationship, you get a mutually beneficial transaction. However that is, it's not necessarily purely dollars and cents, but somebody is paying their social currency to exchange for putting up with something that the other person has in terms of a shortfall, whether it's some physical, whether it's financial, whether it's one partner having to put more effort than the other in order to keep them, whatever it is. There's a certain equilibrium that's created that I get this in exchange for that. And breakups often happen because either you have somebody who's, as I told you before, in the true love seeking category, finding somebody in the control seeking category, or you have a partnership that starts out as a mutually beneficial transaction, but one person can no longer bring up their end of the deal. The relationship is based off of somebody providing a certain level of physical attraction that's higher than that person can get in a true love relationship. If the more attractive partner becomes less attractive, then the relationship might fall apart because the deal, quote unquote, that was made is not on even footing. And so maybe they hope, oh, well, they've been together long enough, true love can develop, but if you came into it as a control-seeking relationship, that's not likely to happen. Or it could also be an economic example. Say the deal in this relationship is that one person financially provides for the other in exchange for the other one being loyal and exclusive to them. And the financial providing partner is having hard times. They lose their job. And so therefore, the deal that was created in the mutually beneficial transaction no longer holds. And you can't really expect a deal built on a mutually beneficial transaction to switch to a true love partnership if one person is not really offering their part of the deal. So that's how a lot of breakups happen. And the other ones on the true love side, how a lot of those fail is maybe it starts as a true love partnership, but they're saying, hey, wait, maybe I can try to get a little more extra than my fair share, and they become more control seeking, and that leads to conflict, which is leads to a breakup. The problem with modern dating is that the incentives here are for breaking up. And I will show either whether it's a red pill breakup or a blue pill breakup. The game is structured for relationships to fail due to one of those two reasons in the long run. And what this is similar to in other economics is the idea of the prisoner's dilemma, which is a classic game theory example. For those who aren't familiar, the prisoner's dilemma is the idea that you have two prisoners who were accomplices in a crime, and they have two choices, and they can't really talk to the other person, so they have to make these choices independently. They can either remain silent when they get interrogated by the police, or confess that the other person did the crime. If you confess, then you're going to get, and if the other person confesses, you both get 5 years in prison. If you both cooperate and remain silent, you get a shorter prison time because they can't prove that you're guilty. However, what makes this interesting is if one person confesses and the other person doesn't, the person who confesses gets an even shorter prison time, and the person who stays silent, they have to stay in jail for even longer, and vice versa. So in theory, the best scenario for everybody involved, for both of them, is to both remain silent. However, both parties have the incentive to defect. And so the natural outcome of this game, based on the incentive structure, would be for both to confess. Even though it's not the most optimal outcome, it's the one that has the least downside risk. And there's been mathematical computer algorithms to test running this, and there's several different hypotheses. Like some feel that you can, if you're playing this repeated amount of times, you just all remain silent until one of them defects, and then you switch to automatically defecting. It's called like a grim trigger. A romantic relationship is not a repeating game. It's a one-time game. You're basically making one choice. You're either going to be seeking control or you're going to be seeking true love. And you can do, and there's not really set intervals like every year or every turn or whatever. Somebody can just decide to flip the switch one day, and that leads to a different variety of incentives. It makes it a lot more complicated than a simple prisoner's dilemma. But let's go back to our game theory model here, but let's showing the payoffs. So in this case, the true love partnership, each person gets 2 points of utility, which is better off than they were alone, which in this case would be 0 if they never were dating to begin with. And then if there's a mutually beneficial transaction on the other end, or both decide to be controlling, they each get 1, because they do get the relationship, so they get some points for that. And again, I'm just using these as examples. The ratios might be different in real life, but I'm just trying to show the incentive structure here for this chart. But they're not as happy as if they had the true love partnership, because they know that each one of them had to sacrifice or settle in some way that they wouldn't have otherwise. And then if you look at the breakups, the net score is negative. It's -1. So both people combined are worse off than if they never entered a relationship. However, one partner, the one, usually it's the control-seeking partner, has the advantage on both of these. So like, because the control-seeking partner gets to take advantage of the true love partner for a short period of time to get some sort of utility or gain. And that's why these relationships ultimately fail, because people aren't going to keep losing and getting taken advantage of forever. And that's why they end up being either a red pill or a blue pill breakup. And so, but at the same time, the person who was the control seeker does win. But as you can see, this has a prisoner's dilemma incentive again. Like, you have the incentive to both seek control, and that leads to the problem, because control-seeking relationships are not what people think of as really true romance. They're more like business deals, and that's why a lot of modern relationships are messed up. And social media, what it's done is that it's made people more aware of the existence of these control relationships, and has caused people at younger ages who would be used to be more romantically inclined for the true love partnership to be more inclined for the mutually beneficial transaction. And the problem is that there are a lot more people out there who are looking for the control relationship than the romantics. So if you are a quote unquote true romantic, you oftentimes are going to have a hard time, because most of the dating pool are control-seeking people. And a lot of the control-seeking people are unsatisfied because they're dealing with somebody who is just as control-seeking as they are, so they can't take advantage of them. And so they're kind of grumpily have to settle for their transaction. And these incentives, as you can see, steer to the breakup, because the control-seeking person that takes advantage of has the highest payout on the grid, even if overall it causes the most socially undesirable outcome. And that is kind of, I think, really the root of this. And if you look at this, that also shows how people make their decisions. And then the other thing is, though, who is control seeking and who are truly romantics. And that's how it just gets back to class, because different social classes have different views on this true love versus control matrix. And like, if you look, here's the American class hierarchy for an example of this. The very top and the very bottom are more red-pilled, for a lack of a better term. They are more control-seeking. And in general, I think most of the human population is control-seeking. I don't know the exact ratio, but I would say it's well over, say, 2/3 of people want a controlling relationship to some degree or another. But within the class structure, the upper classes want a control relationship, but not in the conventional way. They want it more in the sense that they value marriage, particularly as a means to gain greater social connections. And they are very distrusting of other people's intentions, given how high they are on the social pyramid, which makes them harder to have true love, because that requires close to unconditional trust. The underclasses also are very control-seeking, because they want to use potentially a marriage as a way to move out of their misery and out of the bottom. Or since they realize their economic condition is so bad, they can focus more on superficial things because they don't really have the financial luxury to really be true romantics. The blue, which here I represent the people who are the most likely to have true love relationships, and that's the middle class, especially if both partners are in the middle class. And then the purple are mixed. There are some people who are true love in the purple categories, and there are some who are more control oriented. And the more you get to the extremes, either way, the more it leans towards control. And then if we look at the European class hierarchy, it's a lot more black and white. Like the very bottom underclass is favor of control for the same reason as the American underclass. The upper class people are also control oriented for the similar reasons that the Americans are, because they care more about maintaining their status, and their fear of losing that is greater than the excitement they get from true love in a marriage, at least. And then since the European middle classes don't have that much social mobility, whoever they pick is probably also a middle class person also, and they can really be more of a true team in that way. Then they can have more true love, because there's not enough of a gap between them in a lot of ways from a socioeconomic perspective that a control relationship can work. And that's going to be the part one of this series. The next part of this, I am going to discuss how, based off of the framework that I've showed in this video and the game theory of relationships, how do people in different social classes pick relationships? And if you want to have a successful romantic relationship yourself, which class of people should you date based on where you are and why? I'll answer all those questions more on the next one of these. If you like this kind of content, feel free to like, subscribe. And what are your thoughts? Are you somebody who's more true love oriented, or are you somebody who wants more stability and control, even if it means a more business-like marriage? Let me know your thoughts. And also, the other announcement I'd like to make is we're going to be continuing our Analyzing Finance with Nick tour. Our next stops are in Miami and in Scottsdale, Arizona in February 15th and on March 1st. I look forward to seeing you all there, and thank you for watching.